record. Everyone got that message? Kia ora. My name is Matt Cameron, and my workshop is now on spreading the solution-focused approach. So this came about because last year I did this very thing, but I used my hobby horse then, or my speciality then was grief and loss, and using solution focus with small groups and grief and loss groups. And so I
世界不会辜负你的努力，也不会辜负你的懒惰。
There is a little command in that says mute all, I think, on the when you go to chat in the participants thing. Oh, okay. And so yeah, anyway, let's go back to that. So I did a workshop on grief and loss with the SF24, and I just loved it. And there was so much positive feedback and encouragement. I thought, oh, I can do this in my hometown. So I offered a workshop on solution focus, introducing solution focused approach. And from introducing that, there was what, 26 people signed up for our local in Timaru, New Zealand. And they said, we've got to do this again. So I said, okay. And so I did another one, and another 16 people signed up for that one as well, about 2 months later. And then it just took off with me getting offered some jobs in other places near Timaru and in workplaces. But then I also did another grief and loss one in a city nearby. Just completed a workshop yesterday in another city about an hour away, called developing developing solution-focused conversations. And I just truly love it. I found my passion, I suppose, in doing adult education and sharing solution-focused things. And so I thought this year I'll do a workshop on spreading solution-focused approach, because it's such a joy to do that. All right, so born in Morrinsville from a family background, just about me, in a little town called Morrinsville, which is about where that arrow is pointing. I'm now living in Timaru, which is down in the South Island, 1,000 kilometers away from my hometown. I enjoy working with people. I am a handyman. I love building things and fixing things. I'm married for 21 years now, and I have 2 boys, 18 and 20, nearly 19 and 21. And I have grown to love I've grown to enjoy listening to people's stories. And I'm a Christian, and that motivates me to serve. So that's kind of all about who I am. So my best hopes from this workshop is to formulate what are the essentials of the approach. So that got me in mind was because I've done 6-hour, like one-day workshops, 6 hours. I've done 3-hour workshops, and I've done 90-minute ones, and I've done 1-hour workshops. And so that made me really fine-tune what is the really important things that I want to get across in the solution-focused approach. And so the thing is, I think the most important thing is just practicing. That's probably where I've developed my own skills, and being part of the SFU, which is the solution-focused universe that's organised and run by Elliot Connie. Just regular practice every week being offered. I don't necessarily tune up to every week because it changes in time, and it might be too early for me one morning or something. But the practice is really, really important. And I have other colleagues, like a guidance counsellor in my local town where I'm living, and we do practice together as well. Just remind people to mute when you come in. So this is a clean recording for everyone. The mindset of solution focused is really, really important. Just that understanding that everyone has skills and resources, and that we want to see the best in everyone, and we want the best. We want their best hopes to be a reality, and we really believe that they can be when we understand what their best hopes are. So explaining the approach is really key as well, to give solution-focused enthusiasts tools to share. So you might have little 5-minute conversations with people, or you might have opportunities to run staff meetings. So I want you to have that. I want you to share what works for me and discuss how to set up a workshop and discuss what others have found to be successful as well. So if we get an opportunity at the end, if I keep going faster than 1 minute a slide, then we'll get through this. So setting up, it has to start with a topic. So my first topic, like I said, was solution-focused introduction to the solution-focused approach. And then I was asked to do a topic on resilience, which was just very simple because I said, what are your best hopes? And it was about resilience and where have you been resilient and how you've showed resilience. And we made a big list of things in the staff meeting. And if you're rating your resilience on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you be? Oh, and how did you get to that score? And if you went up the scale one more, what would you notice? What would be different? And how far up the scale would you really like to be? And what would you notice if you were that high on the scale as well? I think just adding some people that need, so those are the topics. Then I have an outline that I draw up and roughly work out my time schedule or schedule, however you say that. And then look, if some people want to know the research that is in solution focus, they want to know that it is an evidence-based approach. So I have a little bit about that, or I skip it depending on the audience. Then I create a slideshow. That's the thing that works for me, like this slideshow, I suppose, because that keeps me on track and it just helps me organize my thoughts and have those essentials that I really want to cover and get through. And write the program with times, etc. And I have a checklist, which is a checklist of things I need to take when I am delivering, or if it's an online workshop, then what I need to have in front of me when I'm delivering that workshop. So that's the essentials of setting up. So this is an example of my schedule that I draw up, and it just really clearly gives me an estimate of how long I want to spend on that. And having a group contract, this is just the first part of the session. So delivering that part of it. Also, I think, this part of the setting up, and I got this feedback yesterday, was the idea of getting people to connect with each other. So that's really important. So I get people up, standing up. This is the 9:55 example there. And I have signs around the room that says, not me, me, probably not me, probably not me, possibly me, and probably me. So just a scale of 1 to 5 kind of thing. And then I had a good sleep last night, just people moving, and then asking solution-focused questions. How did you get here today, now that you're standing over there, that you didn't have a good sleep? If they had a good sleep, tell me about what made it a good sleep. What do you do in preparation? What do you do that you would pass on to other people in terms of you having a good sleep? If I just had it in the middle. The other thing is, like, well, I had a healthy breakfast, just getting people to move. So quite a lot of people who only had coffee that morning, or they have no breakfast, and having that laugh and a conversation, but getting people moving and talking to each other in those small groups when we're doing that. And then I think number 3, I sped on the way here is a cool question, because it's going a little bit deeper, letting people confess their sins, so to speak, and having a good laugh about that as well. And just if they were in a hurry, what was going on, and how do they normally drive, and just getting honesty shared there. Number 4 is I have permission from Chris Iverson to share the little booklet manual called Briefer. So I just ask people if they've read it, and that's a nice, where would you stand? Me, not me, probably me, possibly me, if they read half of it. Again, just sharing those kind of ideas as well. And I know the solution-focused approach, what is it all about? And that's a scaling question. So then we move into a scale of how much do I know, and what do I know that gets me there in terms of solution-focused approach? How well do I know solution-focused? And that's a real good example. I usually tell a story about how when I went to a solution-focused conference 5 or 6 years ago, and came home from that, I asked my wife, where would you rate our marriage on a scale of 1 to 10? And that gets a good laugh, because then I share, well, actually, she gave me a 3 on that scale. And everyone laughs at that as well. And I said, no, a 3, what do you mean? That's amazing. So I asked her, why did you give it a 3 and not just a 2? And she started listing all these wonderful things about what I was doing that made me a 3. And it sounded to me more like a 7 or an 8, of course. And so that gets a good laugh again, but it illustrates the approach with the scaling question. It's about strengths and resources, not deficits of, wow, only a 3. And so then we can have those conversations really illustrating what it is in terms of scaling right from the start. This next part of speed dating as well is just, again, another opportunity to get people to connect again. Lots of little questions on cards that I share. You can see I use conversational cards over here. And that's just getting people rotating around the room, talking to everybody each for 1 minute. And you never enough time, and it just speeds everything around. But everyone's connecting and right from the start and getting conversations started. So that's the kind of how I set up the first part of the workshop. If I'm doing an all-day type thing, it's a little bit more succinct if it's not all day. So let's go. And there's my checklist, just an example of the solution-focused workshop checklist, all the things that I need to make sure I take. And I have that in a little box and take that with me if I'm traveling somewhere.
Tongs, Matt?
Say it again.
Tong?
All of these things.
Tongs you've got there, sharp knife and tongs.
Yes. So that comes to one of the next slides. Yes, tongs and a sharp knife, because I provide food. So so really, and that's a really important part of a one-day workshop, is keeping everyone together. So no one's going away. We're having those conversations all day. Yeah. So yeah, good question. So the topics that I've done, and I've gone over these really quickly, so I'll just leave that slide for a second. That's what I've delivered already just in 1 year. And what has remained the same over time. So food, that's been really important in providing food at every workshop that I do. Okay, the morning teas and the lunches, and just making sure that's all organized. And the sign of a good conference or a good workshop is good food. And if you do something really bad, everyone will forgive you if there's good food. So that's an important part of it as well. So always having food there. Scaling has not changed. I always introduce the workshop with scaling. How well do you know solution-focused approach? And then why are you that number and not lower, sort of thing. I think that's really important as well. The mindset of solution-focused approach, asking questions that promote resourcefulness is just such a key part of what I've found that I want to pass on right from the start and in every workshop, is the mindset. Those assumptions, those we'll come to those. I'll show you that. The superhero, looking for the superhero in everybody. I think that's a really essential, that stayed the same from when I learned and started passing on solution-focused approach. Is just, what is it? What can you see in every person that you're going to appreciate and go, wow, and say wow backwards, wow, and just get that attitude of cheerleading going on within the practice tasks that we do, and yeah, just in every conversation, just really doing that. And then practice. This is, I almost feel lazy when I do these workshops, because I set a task and let people just have that conversation for 5, 10, 15 minutes and swapping around in your groups and just practicing. And that is a real strength of the workshops that I think when we do this. And so I've got on my website, I'll show I have it at the end and at the beginning as well, is www.discoversolutions.nz, discoversolutions.nz. And I've got 70 plus practice tasks on there for free download. Just click on them and use them, because that is the key. If you want to run solution focused workshops, just using those practice tasks is really important. Having a contract, I can do this quickly in terms of the group setting, really agreeing that here we are as a group. How can we feel safe today, that we can feel safe talking, sharing, and growing together in this approach. So I have that as an essential part of setting up the day. So confidentiality, what we do here stays here, in the sense that when you're talking about other people's stuff, you can talk about all your learning and all the things that you shared during the day, but when you talk about other people's stuff, no, that stays confidential. Respecting each other, having honesty, and no rescuing. That comes up regularly, where the idea that, oh, I've asked you a hard question, so maybe I can soften it and let you answer it. But that's not about, it's been determined that you can actually really encourage people to just dive deep and let them, if they start crying, it's okay. That's really, really important. So carrying on. Oops, I just clicked on a button that I shouldn't have clicked on. Okay, let's go. Next one. So greeting and introductions. This can be a real time waster, I've found. You know, you can go around the circle of, say, 26 people and say, tell me your name, tell me a bit about yourself. And some people will talk for 5 minutes and some people might talk for 3 or 4 minutes, or, you know, so I've decided if I'm going to do that, I'll break them into groups of 3 or 4 and they can tell their own story in those small groups. But if I'm doing a bigger group, let's just say your name and a strength that begins with the first letter of your name. Now, I've got this set of cards. They're called strength cards. They're probably available around the world. And they just have a list of strengths that they can look through and get some ideas for. But people generally come up with something that begins with the first letter of their name. And maybe if I feel like this time, I might ask the Alfie and Dominic question of what fascinates you about solution focused, and what sort of, why are they here at this workshop? What is it that fascinates you? What did you want to get to know, and that sort of stuff. When I say those get to know you activities, that's the speed dating and just moving around the room stuff. So this is quite important as well. Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn. So I just make it really clear that these are workshops. This is not me, unlike what I'm doing right now in terms of lecturing and just talking. The workshops are really hands-on, and there's lots of practice. So I want to learn. That's like, I just did a workshop yesterday, and I said over and over, really, I'm learning from you guys here as well. This is really sparking my interest, and I want to learn from the amazing questions that you come up with as well. So involving everyone. Now, this is a video that I was shown at a Michael Durant. This is 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, actually. It's on YouTube. Really good short movie. I'll show you part of it and you'll get the feeling for it. So here we go.
I'm here to get validated.
You are awesome.
Excuse me?
You have an amazing face. You've got powerful features, man. Anyone ever tell you that?
No.
Then listen. You look a little down. And it may seem like sometimes people don't understand you. But someday, man, someday, people are gonna see you for what you really are.
You really think so?
Absolutely. You are great.
Need a validation, please?
You are great, ma'am. You have amazing cheekbones.
Really?
I'll skip that. So that just, for me, that sets the tone of the day, where we can say to each other, wow, oh, you're amazing, you're great. And fake it till you make it, if it is that, but it also becomes a genuine thing throughout the day, that people are really encouraging each other and just going, wow, love it. I love how you are so good at your questions, and they might be written down questions, but they're just encouraging each other, and it's just a really cool thing, part of that. So connecting and mingling is an important part, which I've said. So that speed dating, group work, changing those groups around throughout the day, and having food. So scaling practice, this is kind of skimming through. So we're up to slide 14 of 55. So I am going to bang, bang, bang. So scaling practice on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you? Why? How come you're there, not less than that? What's got you to that? Look, really emphasizing the resources and strengths rather than the deficit sort of thing. So scale it. Suppose you moved 1 point up the scale. What would you notice? And I think I explained at this point in the solution-focused approach, we don't say, how would you get 1 step up the scale? We're saying, what would you notice if you were there? This is looking at outcomes that are already real and taking place. It's not about getting there and what you can do. It's if you were there, what would you notice about yourself? What would be different? And what else, what else, what else? So this is the best hopes example at the start of the kind of, we're about half an hour or an hour into the workshop after those warm-up activities. And just saying groups of 3 I find are really important, or 3 or 4, because if you want to go fast, you could have in pairs, yes. But the thing is, the mindset is developed when we have one person observing who's the cheerleader, and they're listening to the person asking the question and going, wow, good question, awesome. And then they're listening to the answer and they say, whoa, what a great answer. And just starting that encouragement and complimenting right from the start of the day. And that develops this mindset. So when they are the activator or the therapist, they are looking at the person with a wow factor as well. And just really, I think that's really an important skill to learn. And so it's practiced even in these practice tasks as you have groups of 3 and they're taking turns at swapping around, and whoever's the A, B, or C person in there as well. So asking a simple question like, what are your best hopes from the next few hours? And the cheerleader says at that point, what a good question. And then they might say, what do you hope to take away from this time? Just, if it's helpful to you. And they can go, wow, good question. And then the person gives an answer. Well, I want to take some tools to help me in my work. Oh, yes, tools, yes. And the cheerleader just begins to really echo what's being said, and it's just developing those sort of skills. So that's I think having groups of 3 or 4 is really key. And keeping those times, I suppose, that part of it, keeping the time down to about 3 minutes a person. You could go longer when you're getting developing that thing, but just 3 minutes is enough to just hone in on just some of those skills and just keeping things positive, and just asking what else. If you get stuck, ask what else. So this is some of the research. This is like a slide I'd put up, and how it's been reviewed. It's been, there is evidence to say this. The conclusion of the studies overall found positive evidence that SFBT is an effective treatment in a wide variety of behavioral and psychological outcomes, and maybe briefer than other approaches. So I do make it quite clear, things like this. This is a meta study, 2008. I make it clear that other approaches do work, and what makes them work is that the therapist is good at what they do. They understand the approach. And then the evidence from the solution-focused approach is that most people who do solution-focused understand how it works, and so they are effective counselors as well. So an example, I did a workshop with counselors, registered counselors in my hometown a few weeks ago. And one of the ladies came up to me after the conference, after just the workshop, it was only 90 minutes. And she said, I've just completed my master's in narrative therapy, and I don't always understand what that's about, but this was just really seems simple. How can I get more of this? And I do agree that the solution focused is a simple approach. Once you develop the skills and the mindset, it's just like, it just makes sense because it fits. And all we have to do is ask questions to amplify the best hopes and the strengths and the resources that those best hopes, what those best hopes are, what the client is asking in terms of their best hopes. So developing that mindset. So having conversations that assume the best of people, having conversations that assume everyone wants something better, because problems only exist in terms of things being better. I can ask the question, if things were better tomorrow, what would you notice? If things I don't have to know what the problem is. So asking questions that cannot be answered negatively in that sense. And I think we do a activity I'm going to show in next slide, actually, believing that people have a purpose in life. It's what I want to believe. It's a mindset that we have. So I use this example as, how are you? And most of the time I found on my own, either people don't really answer the question, they just say good. Or you say, how are you? And they'll say busy day, and they answer it negatively. Oh, I'm a little bit sick, I'm a little tired. And most times it's not really like, oh, just everything's so good, it's just great. And so I challenge people to come up with these alternatives. Instead of saying, how are you? What's been the best part of your day? Presuppositional questions that you've had a best part. What are you looking forward to? Oh, you might be looking forward to something. So if they said nothing, then I might follow up with one of these other questions. What do you enjoy about your learning if it's in a school context? What is going well for you at the moment? And one of the teachers at my school asked the question, what's good? What's good? Just very simple, 2 words. And they ask, and that's a good way of asking questions. And I think the penny drops at this point where people go, yes, I could ask better questions. Questions that assume good, questions that promote positivity, I suppose, in that sense, or resources and better outcomes. So throwing this just out of the briefer thing, there's no wrong answers to these questions as well. We're asking, how are things going for you? What is good in your life? And if they say nothing, well, I'm going to either not believe that or follow up with another question. So despite nothing being good, what's maybe something you're looking forward to? What's got you here today that's wanting something better, and asking those kind of questions. So asking questions that are future or solution focused to inspire hope and expectancy. So problem, where there's no problem, I love this practice task. I feel too embarrassed to talk about my problem, but I need help now because I can't go on. I can't go on like this any longer. So having a conversation with someone who doesn't want to talk about the problem immediately after these kind of things is, for me, emphasizing we don't have to know the problem. So let's imagine tomorrow the problem's gone away. What would be the first thing you'd notice? If we talked now and you came up with some kind of solution that helped you, even though it was just too big to talk about, what would be noticed? What's these small changes that would be there? What would be the first small sign that a solution is beginning to be found? I've got that picture in the wrong place. That's all right. These practice tasks, like I said, are on the website, www.discoversolutions.nz. So, and doing these in groups of 3 as well. Again, I would be doing. So these are some assumptions. If it's not broken, don't fix it. You know these well if you have a solution-focused background. If it works, do more of it. If it's not working, do something different. Stop. And people just go, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, that works. Again, more assumptions. People are unique. People have existing strengths and resilience. People are not defined by their problems. And quite often, I think this is one of the next slides might be, I'll add in here, quite often the solution has nothing to do with the problem. People are experts in their own lives. Change is possible. People have their own experience. What works for me may not work for you. So when people come and they might say, oh, well, just tell me what works for you. Give me some resources. And I say, oh, well, it may not work for me what works for you. If you come up with something, I think it'll be much more effective. And actually, you'll probably remember it a lot more as well. So just being open about this. So this is another short video. I don't think I'm going to play it because of time. It's on YouTube. This Cody Lee, I'll play a little bit of it so you get the feel for it, but he's an amazing singer. But what I do is I challenge people, don't look at Cody Lee in this example, look at the people around who are supporting him. Now, if we could be like those people who are supporting someone in the same way as the mother or the family or the judges or the crowd who are applauding, what a difference we'd make in our world if we were amplifying the talents and the superhero in each of these people. So let's play a little bit of this. Where's the arrow?
Welcome to America's Got Talent. What's your name?
I'm Cody.
Hi, Cody.
I'm Cody Lee.
How old are you?
I am 22 years old.
Yeah.
Who are you, miss? Who are you?
I'm Mom.
Oh,
I'm
hi,
Tina
Mom.
Lee.
Hi, Tina. How are you? What are you going to do here for us today?
I'm gonna sing a song for you on the piano.
I love it. Tina, tell us a little bit about Cody.
Cody is blind and autistic.
Oh.
Wow.
We found out that he loved music really early on. He listened and his eyes just went huge. And he started singing. And that's when I was in tears, because that's when I realized, oh my gosh, he's an entertainer. So, yeah. Go on, Cody. Go on.
Well, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Oh, you want to hear that?
I'm singing a song to you. There goes my heart beating, 'cause you are the reason I'm losing my sleep.
Yes!
Please come.
I'm a new judge this season, and I'm also a new mom this year. And
Congratulations.
it's the toughest job I've ever had and the most rewarding job I've ever had. You just want to give your kids the moon, the stars, and the rainbows. And tonight, I'm gonna give you something special.
Climb every mountain
And swim every ocean.
Right.
to be.
So, like, lots of tears come about when I show that, and people want tissues, but it just gets the emphasis on, wow, if we could actually respect and praise and encourage, like the people around Cody Lee, what a difference that would make with our clients if we want to assume the best of every person that comes in there. And I think this is key to unlocking the solution-focused approach, is just really believing in the people we're working with. What is, and asking, what is the superhero? What am I looking for in this person that is, and the truth is they will have something that they're really good at, something that is better than you and others and whatever. It's like, and go looking for it and assume that it's there as well. So seeing the person who's strong, believing they're competent, or the group is competent, believing they want something better, and hearing their best hopes for change, not putting our own kind of things in there. Right. And then a part of it, so when we have a break, we have this Māori word, taonga, which is a treasure. And I ask people to just, what is a treasure that they've learned from this first part of this workshop, or what they've seen already? And they're just sharing on post-it notes on the wall, and for other people to marvel and treasure as well. What have they learned so far? So I think I have that in my workshops as well. And then that brings to, after that, I want to talk about a solution-focused diamond. So I do have permission to share this, but I will definitely give credit to Elliot Connie and Adam Frow, who developed this solution-focused diamond. So subscribe to the website. You get free webinars. At the moment, Elliot seems to be doing one every 2 weeks or so, and they are really worth watching and just encouraging and just keeping you learning solution-focused and being challenged with the latest developments. You can go to his website also, and you can sign up to courses that are there that you can pay for as well, about this. And there's one there on the solution-focused diamond, and all sorts of different approaches as well. Also, not approaches, other topics around solution-focused. So the solution-focused diamonds look like this, and I think this is the best summary that I've ever seen. If you haven't seen it already, on what the solution focused, the steps or the stages or the, what do you call those charts, flow chart of how solution focused approach works. So getting a desired outcome, what are your best hopes from being here? This is on the gray line down the side. Getting that you can't go anywhere. We talk about the taxi driver at the airport jumping in and saying, where to? And he's not going to drive anywhere until you give them somewhere to go to. And although you could say, get me out of here, get me away from this place. And some clients come to us with that kind of best hope. And so we take them out of here. And so the question is now what do you want from this conversation? When things are better, let's say tomorrow the problems have gone away, what's the first thing you're going to notice, or a sign that's going to tell you that your problems have gone away? And there's those 4 ways of describing, which is the next phase in the solution-focused approach, is describing the reality of the best hopes. And so this resource talk, scaling, preferred future, history of the outcome. Now, how they did this is apparently, I could be exaggerating, but they got 1,000 therapists who are well known in the field who are doing solution-focused approach. And they just watched how they did solution-focused. And out of those conversations, they saw some people were doing resource talk, some people were doing scaling, some people were doing preferred future, some people were doing the history of the outcome as well. Or they might be doing all 4 of those things in a single session. They might be doing 1 thing or 2 things. And they put it into this category of whatever it is, we're going to use that to describe the reality or the presence of your desired outcome, your best hopes. And then there's the closing. So the idea is to just practice each one of these little things here as well. So having a practice task. I think what also has been really important for me as I've been developing is this idea of someone comes to you with an impossible type question. And so by asking different questions, it takes it from being external, a doing thing, to an internal place of being. And so someone says, I want to give up smoking, right? Well, that sounds very external. What difference would it make if you gave up smoking? So what's the outcome you would get if you gave up smoking? Well, I'd feel more free. I'd feel happy. I'd feel energetic. Right, now I can talk about that thing, the presence of those emotions or those feelings or resources. The next time, if they say the best hope was I want to lose 20 kgs. Okay, well, that's not going to happen tomorrow, is it? I can't say, well, say tomorrow you woke up and you had lost 20 kgs, what would you notice? I would say, what difference would it make if you lost 20 kgs? What's the outcome you would get if you lost 20 kgs? Well, I would feel happier in myself. I'd feel that people loved me. Okay, let's imagine you wake up tomorrow where you feel happier in yourself. You feel that people love you. What's the first thing you're going to notice, right? Or you could ask history questions. When is the last time you felt that people noticed you and loved you or cared and you're feeling happy? And then talk about the presence of that and then bring it into the present again there. So whatever the thing is, in my work, I can remember asking, if things were feeling better for you tomorrow, what would you notice? And the man said, well, my wife, who had died 3 years before, my wife would be lying next to me alive again. Sounds impossible. But I asked, what difference would it make if your wife was alive lying next to you again tomorrow? It'd just give me purpose for living, he said. I'd be looking forward to the day. I'd have confidence. Well, there's 3 internal things that have suddenly come about that I can say, well, say tomorrow you wake up and your wife isn't lying next to you, but your purpose for living, your confidence, and having goals for the day were there. What's the first thing you'd notice about yourself? Who else would notice? And how would you let them know that they had noticed because you were pleased that they'd noticed you? Well, those connecting conversations. So asking different questions is really important in getting a really established best hope, I feel. So then here's a question. So what is a strength or a quality on the first part? That if you had more of that quality, what difference would it make? Based on that question, so they might say when they introduce themselves, I'm a giver. I'm a good listener. What's their strength? Whatever it was, if they were Lisa and her strength was listening. So if you had more of that quality of listening, what difference would it make? So we're practicing that question and doing it 10 times. What difference would it make? 10 times. Just keep asking, what difference would it make? What difference would it make? And I did have an example in Christchurch a few months ago where someone said compassion was their key. And someone said, so their partner in their group of 3 said, what difference would it make if you had more compassion? And they said, oh, I'd just be running around all over the place. I'd be doing too much. I'd be burnt out. So what do you want instead of that? If you had more compassion, but it wasn't burning you out, and asking then instead question is really important to just flip it around and get it back on track in terms of a positive outcome. All right, so asking those questions, and generally 2 outcomes at the end. If you ask it 10 times, they're either looking after themselves better or they are living according to their purpose in life. They're doing what they're meant to do. They're kind of real deeper outcomes when you ask what difference would it make several times. All right, then, and for you, that's right, I keep asking, just asking what difference it would make, because quite often they talk about, oh, it'd be helping others. I'd be doing this for others and they would be happy. But what difference would it make for you is kind of a learning key that we did. And I like making that, I add that after we've done one round, because then suddenly the conversation changes the next time they practice it, because they've learned to say, oh, it's real emphasis on you and what difference does it make for you. So developing those things, which is kind of, I got that idea from seeing how they develop solution focus, like the best hopes question and how that arose and how the miracle question arose. They were kind of fluky things that just happened, but they happened in the context of others observing, and learning that way is a good way of learning as well. So 2 main purpose components: establishing the best hopes and then describing the best hopes and the reality of those best hopes being there. What difference would it make? What would you notice? What would others notice? So we just do that. Chris Ward was the one that came up with these 2 words. He might have not been original, but he definitely shared it with me and I learned it. And so he just summarized the best solution focus with these 2 words: instead and suppose. And I think if someone wants to go, oh, can it be reduced? Really, can a solution focused approach be reduced to 2 words? Well, here's 2 words. So someone comes and they say, I want to lose weight. So what do you want to be doing instead of having this extra weight? What do you want instead? Or want to be, if they say, I want to quit smoking, well, what do you want instead of smoking? Oh, I want to feel free. I want to do that. Well, let's suppose that freedom came about. What would you notice? Let's suppose you felt more, you loved yourself more because you lost weight. What would you notice tomorrow if that happened? Sort of thing. So instead and suppose are quite good little summary question words. So then it comes to presuppositions, and I think this is a really key part in terms of, if I was looking for the essentials of the solution-focused approach, really hammering in the questions that we ask, not if you woke up tomorrow, when you woke up tomorrow makes a big difference. If you woke up tomorrow and you had this confidence, sounds quite different to when you wake up tomorrow and you've got this confidence. What would you notice? Those sort of things there. It's implicit in our questioning. Given that you've come today and you've been working on these things already, what do you hope would be a really good thing to come about? In what ways are you doing these things already, or whatever, those sort of things? Which problem would you want to solve first, A or B? So keeping on moving on. Tell me about the time when the problem was less of a problem. So there's a really presuppositional question that just assumes that there was a time, right? Same sort of thing with these ones as well. When you've had similar difficulties in the past, what strategy or strategies did you use to solve them? That's assuming, presupposing that they had strategies that would solve these problems. Tell me about a time when things were better. That's assuming things were better. There's been none? Oh, so you can't remember a time right now. Well, there's presuppositional saying, well, actually there is a time, but you just can't remember it right now. Just it's kind of those things like, what are your best hopes from our time together today? I don't know. You're the expert. Oh, so you don't know just now. Suppose you do know, and asking those sort of questions. If I ask someone who is close to you, what would they say your best hopes from this time together would be? who would be the first to notice? All those questions there. I love hammering that idea in terms of doing workshops, that presuppositions is really important. So then we talk about resource talk. So flick the slide. There's one, and then a practice task to practice resource talk. And like I said, these are on the on my website. There's about 70 practice tasks if you want to grab them. Don't know why that picture is suddenly in front of the words. Anyway, kind of checked it close enough. All right, so what's your biggest accomplishment in life? What are 10 traits that have helped you achieve that accomplishment? This is resource talk, just making lists of resources that you already exist. Now, suppose you brought those resources into the current problems or your current problems. How would they help you now? And just asking, what would you notice? What would other people notice? What would someone close to you notice? So the next one is scaling. So just clicking on the slideshow and it goes zip. Love slideshows. And then practicing that. And again, really important not to say, how would you go up the scale? Let's just focus on the resources that they have that have got them to that number already. I can use an example of a boy I talked to, and I said, in terms of managing his grief, where was he on his scale of 1 to 10? And he said -400. And it's like, I didn't want to be thrown by that. So I said, well, why did you give it -400, not -1,000? And he proceeded to give me reasons for it being -400 and not -1,000, which sounds to me, because numbers don't really matter, it's what matters to him is the number, sounded to me like a 5 or a 6 or something, you know. But when I asked him, so what would you notice, given that this conversation is being helpful, if you moved up somehow to a -399? And he gave me, he described a 10 out of 10. It would be my summary of that. So looking at the strengths, not tasks to get there, what would you notice if you were there? That's the really important part. So then preferred future, which is the miracle question. So just practice that. Imagine you were at your very best when you wake up tomorrow. 10 questions. What would you notice if you're at your very best? And we practice that. And then the history of the outcome, doing that, and a practice task to do with that as well, which is there. So what makes you good at your job? History. Look, what have you done? Your brilliance in your job. What makes you so good? Then just some quotes. I'm going really fast because I'm kind of over time now. So how it works. If I just put that there, and you can watch this later and pause it. Asking questions, listening and reinforcing for evidence of strengths, working with what people can do, not what they can't. Those kind of things. What solution focus does, people are encouraged to increase the frequency of the useful behaviors, which is the idea that when they notice things, they amplify it. Now, those things might have been happening already by having this conversation that really describes the reality of those things happening, then it becomes more real to them. So little small increments of change, client solution are not necessarily directly related to the problem. Those are more assumptions there as well. So this is from the brief men in the UK, just looking at how it works and some assumptions again there, which are just, people read these and go, penny drops. Yes, I can see that those are really good ways of working with people, really helpful, resource amplifying ways of working with people. So I always invite people to ask questions. And then there's the follow-up session. That's a good thing to go. What has been better? And there's no wrong answers for what's been better. What are those magic moments since you last saw me? And people just asking for just that little thing. Maybe it was for 5 seconds, but there's just this little glimmer of light in your week. What has been better? But it could be, yes, there are things better. No, there's nothing being better. It's just, it's got worse. So asking questions that still look at resources. What stopped it? What have you done that stopped it from getting even worse? What have you done? Really assuming, again, presuppositional, how are things better for you? And what have you, how have you stopped it getting worse? Or how have you come today with enough hope still want things to get better, to things to improve. And then we do this resource gossip activity, which is just the person sitting in front or with their back towards the group in their small groups, and they just, those ones who are left, they just talk about that person, saying amazing compliments and encouraging them, and just, it's again reinforcing that mentality that we want things can be better, that there's a superhero in everybody, and that we want to see the best in everyone. And a debrief about that. What's it like to receive those compliments? Is it uncomfortable? And how can we also amplify those things that they're doing well in that they were complimented on? And so my summary is just to practice. Always practice, like I said, on the website, 70 practice tasks, free download. Do it, get a partner and just start practicing and show others that as well. So I always want to put it in some, what have helped me the most over the last few years. The SF on Tour is just a phenomenal website that's got so many resources from all these interviews that they've had with, there's 108 interviews, I think, there, with people around the world, gurus and experts around the world, and normal plebs as well, or people. But they've got resources that they share about the interview as well, and what they've got on their websites. The brief people, Alec Connie, as I said already, has amazing resources on his, and lots of free stuff that he's always passing on and doing free webinars. And my website's there, so take a note of that and visit or ask questions. That would be great. So 6:25, 5 minutes to go before the closing ceremony of the Oceania thing. Is there anybody wants to ask questions? Or we'll see you later. Cool.
Excuse me, Matt, would we be able to access the PowerPoints at all?
The recording of this will be, from the ones that I use.
Yes.
If you email me, I'm sure it's a bit hard somewhat because there are lots of videos in them. But if I share the PDF of it, it doesn't have the videos, for sure. Yep, email me.
Thank you. Your email address.
There's a contact on the website. So if you go to discoversolutions.nz,
the contact there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Just put your email and address in that, and I can email back. Any of those ones like resilience and this introductions. I mean, and I share that because I emailed people from the what would I say? I emailed people from the SF on Tour from Dominic and asked for their resources, and they freely gave me their resources as well. So that's why it's pretty. I would freely give it to other people as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, in those interviews that Dominic and Alfie did, they often say on those ones, if people email me, I'm happy to share what I've got. So that's cool.
Matt, I'd just like to say a really big thank you for what you just done. It doesn't matter, it's like you say, it doesn't matter how many times you hear this stuff, you always pick up a little nugget to take away, and I've certainly picked up 2 or 3 from what you said today that I've written down, things I'll use. So yeah, thanks for doing it. Really appreciate the effort.
Yeah, I was hoping to have maybe a bit more time in saying what works really well when you do sharing workshops. If you've got nuggets to share.
Yeah, we've actually, part of the SFIO group we've started in Australia, which you're welcome to come and join, we've just called it SF Conversations, and it's really just about sharing the way we do business. You know, it's a small group of practitioners, all from different backgrounds and working in different areas in different states. And we just do literally a little bit of what you've done today, but just focus on one thing for an hour every now and again.
That's good. The thing is, I would add actually that the research is that any workshop that we do is only really effective if we have some follow-up. So that's where the one that I did yesterday is the first time I've said, let's have a meeting in a couple of weeks' time for an hour. And so we're doing a Zoom meeting that we're going to do, and just for 1 hour to have any questions where people have tried something and they've maybe failed, which is which is fine. And then having a little what would work, or maybe there's an opportunity. Oh, actually, maybe if you did this or that opportunity there, or just even doing some of those practice tasks with small groups in the breakout rooms and things.
Yeah, I try to push SF into the business environment. I'm not into the sort of therapy world very much. I'm much more on the business side, but it's how you adapt. You know, a lot of what you've talked about today. How do you adapt that slightly to make it working? Perhaps a slightly more cynical business group.
Yeah.
You know, it's how you get that approach, and how you just get those little bits of traction that you talked about. And
Yes.
sometimes it's you know, you do things in an unusual way, and you suddenly realize it's successful, and you think that's what we need. It's just that little bit of difference that people like. You know, yeah, no, it was good session. Thank you.
Yep. I better let you go. There's the next session starting of the closing. If you want to go to the big room.
Go on, yeah.
Thanks for coming. I'll stop the recording.